Imagine this. One day, you're living your life in Dubai, one of the safest, most sought-after places for global professionals. And then, almost overnight, that all shatters. On February 28, 2026, a military operation in the Middle East didn't just hit its targets, it completely upended the lives of millions of expatriates. Today, we're going to break down how this single conflict sparked a massive migration, where everyone is going, and what it really means for the rest of the world.
And things escalated fast. I mean, really fast. Look at this timeline. The operation kicks off on February 28th. Within just a few hours, Iran strikes back, hitting its neighbors, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, places that are home to millions of expats. We're talking ports, even embassies getting hit. And then, the signal that changed absolutely everything. The U.S. State Department issues a Depart Now warning for 14 countries. And let me be clear, this wasn't some casual travel advisory. This was an order to evacuate. Now.
So you've got an entire region on high alert. But what does that actually mean for the people on the ground? Well, the numbers behind this sudden exodus they're almost hard to wrap your head around. Just let this number sink in for a second. 5.27 million, that's how many people, according to the Costs of War project at Brown University, had already been displaced across the region since late 2023. This one conflict just blew that number wide open. We're not talking about abstract statistics here. This is a full-blown humanitarian crisis on an almost unbelievable scale.
Now this right here, this is why the situation in the UAE was so unique and so volatile. Its population is 90% expatriate. Think about that. Its entire economy, its culture, its whole identity is built on attracting foreign talent. So an exodus on this scale, it's not just a crisis, it's an existential threat. And right when people were scrambling to leave, the escape routes just vanished. Can you imagine? You've packed your bags, you've got your family, you get to the airport, only to find out that more than half of all scheduled flights are gone, canceled. We're talking over 23,000 flights grounded, trapping hundreds of thousands of people with no clear way out.
Okay, so we've looked at the big, scary numbers. But behind every single one of those numbers is a human being, a family, forced to make impossible choices in a split second. To really get what was at stake, we need to zoom in from the huge crisis to one very personal story.
So, let's talk about Agnes Chen Pun. She's a Hong Kong expat who is living in Dubai. The moment the attack started, she grabbed her husband and young child and just fled the city. They actually had to move twice inside the UAE, just trying to find somewhere safe. First to Fujairah, then to Sharjah. They were so desperate they even looked into chartering private jets before they finally found commercial flights to Singapore. The price? Over $2,000 per person.
And when reporters asked her what it was like, her words really say it all. So nervous, so anxious. It's such a simple phrase, but it just perfectly captures the emotional gut punch this was for countless families who watched their safe, predictable lives get turned completely upside down.
And look, Agnes's story, as terrifying as it is, was not unique. Not by a long shot. People like Corey McCain had to drive for 10 hours just to get to the Omani border, where taxi drivers were charging insane amounts of money, hundreds of dollars, for a simple ride to an airport that was still open. This kind of chaos was happening everywhere.
So, if you're one of the hundreds of thousands of people scrambling to get out, where do you even go? When an entire massive region suddenly becomes a no-go zone, new safe havens have to emerge.
And we're already seeing these really clear patterns forming. For a lot of the professionals, big hubs in Asia like Singapore and Hong Kong became the go-to spots. For European nationals, well, they were mostly brought home on special repatriation flights. And then you had neighboring countries like Oman and Jordan become these absolutely critical transit points. But, and this is so important to remember, the story is totally different for the millions of migrant workers from places like India and the Philippines. Many of them just didn't have the money or the paperwork to just up and leave.
You know, the fact that Agnes Chin Pun's first thought was to get to Singapore, that's really telling. It's what you could call an instinctive safe haven. See, in a crisis, money and talent always flow towards stability, towards predictability, towards top-notch infrastructure. And for so many professionals in that part of the world, Singapore was the obvious and immediate choice.
And this brings us to the really crucial part of this story, because what happened here wasn't just a temporary evacuation. No, this was the beginning of a huge, long-term reshuffling of global talent. And it's going to have some profound consequences for Dubai, and honestly, for the rest of the world.
I mean, just listen to this quote from Cinzia Bianco at the European Council on Foreign Relations. It just hits the nail on the head. She says, "This is Dubai's ultimate nightmare.
because its entire brand, its whole identity, was built on being this untouchable, safe oasis. That idea is now shattered. And as she says, there might be no going back.
And the economic fallout is just, wow. Take a look at these projections from Oxford Economics. We're talking about a potential loss in tourism revenue of somewhere between $34 and $56 billion in 2026 alone. That is a catastrophic financial blow that could wipe out years and years of growth in just a few months.
So what you end up with is this, a tale of two hubs. On one hand, you have Dubai, whose image as a fortress of stability has been fundamentally broken. And on the other, you have Singapore, whose reputation as that stable, reliable hub has just been supercharged. In the global game of attracting capital and talent, perception is everything. And right now, perceptions are shifting in a big way.
So why should this matter to you, whether you're in Singapore or London or New York? Well, for starters, places like Singapore are probably going to see a big inflow of talent and capital coming from the Gulf. And globally, we're all going to feel the impact on oil prices and shipping routes. But maybe most importantly, this is a huge, flashing reminder of why diversifying your assets and even your personal safety options is so critical in a world that's this unpredictable.
For decades, the Middle East, especially Dubai, was the world's most ambitious expat experiment. It drew in millions with this incredible promise of opportunity and security. Right now, that entire experiment is being stress-tested like never before. And the big question this crisis forces us all to ask is, are we just watching an evacuation? Or are we watching a permanent, fundamental shift in the geography of the global expat dream?